Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. Here with me today again, and you'll find out why again,
Take two,
is Joe Baker from Second City Screed. First of all, mate, thank you for coming back. Joe is the first person in the studio twice and the first guest in the studio with the new setup. So, Joe, let's talk.
Mate, I'm spoiled. I'm loving it. Take two.
That was it, mate. I just wanted to get you back, really, just to see. I was like, I've moved the room around. I need Joe to have a look.
My judgment, my feng shui judgment.
That's it. And obviously, Joe's come in with the merch today as well. Boom.
Loving life.
I'll explain. So Joe very kindly came in. How long ago was it? It was only
last week.
It was last Wednesday, was it?
It was, a week today.
Joe came in a week ago. Now, thankfully, Joe's local. So it wasn't like a couple of people have made a hell of a trek. Joe's local. He came in a week ago, and we recorded a great episode, nearly 2 hours worth of fantastic conversation.
Some would say dribble.
No, mate, it was good. That was the worst thing. It was good. I went away dead happy, and then went to edit the footage at the weekend to find out that after the software had updated, I hadn't reverted the microphone feed back to the mics. So the audio was recorded through the laptop, and to put it bluntly, it sounded shit. So
very professional, mate.
So I gave Joe the option to, but listen, there's a life lesson in this, isn't there? And you learn from your mistakes.
100%. Mate.
I learned nothing from the ones that went well. But from your episode, mate, I learned a lot.
There we go, mate. There we go.
In fairness, mate, I felt fucking awful having to tell you.
Nah, look, it's one of those things, mate. And like I said to you in the messages when we were chatting to each other, mental health is massively important to me. And I think, if I had to come back 5 times, I'd come back 5 times, mate. So
hopefully not, mate. We're definitely on mics today. So yeah,
just check.
We're hopefully it shouldn't make a noise when you do that. That's the point of it. But yeah, we're all set up properly now. We've had a little rejig in our humble little studio, mainly because having 2 6-foot blokes stuck in the corner, it was cozy. So we've got a little bit more leg room now.
Me thinking you were playing footsie with me.
I was trying. I got told off basically. Somebody noticed, reported me.
Brilliant, love it.
But yeah, what do you think, Joe?
Mate, it's wicked. Yeah. I think it's a lot better. It's a lot more spacious, definitely for sure.
Better this way around.
100%, mate. Like it.
Right then, let's go back to where we were originally, and we'll talk about Joe's business, Joe's story. Certainly one worth listening to. So, with any story, my man, we go back to the beginning. We go back to the start, and obviously we've had this conversation once already, but this is the only time I'm going to mention that now because the listeners haven't. So, you can feel free to take the piss as much as you want.
Happy days, mate. I'm good at that.
But for the listeners' point of view, we'll go back to the beginning of your story. Yeah. And I think a good place to start there was probably to ask you, how was school for you?
So school for me was, I'm going to say a struggle, but it wasn't a struggle. Like, I wasn't stupid for a start. I was quite intelligent. My teachers' frustrations were always that I was always very intelligent. However, I just didn't employ myself. So I had quite a lot going on when I was at school with my parents' situation. So my mum and dad separated when I was very young. I would say probably around sort of like 1 or 2 years old.
I was young as that?
Yeah, very young. It might have been a little bit later, but I can't really remember.
So out of interest, mate, I mean, we could go back even further now. Yeah. But so I find this interesting because I've got a perspective on it. But what was your first memory? Did you have any memories of your mum and dad together?
No, I've got no memories of my mum and dad together at all. My first memory, I would say, is, and this is really, really strange, and quite funny. My stepdad used to be mad into motorbikes, so his family were big into Speedway. They used to run, I believe, the Birmingham Speedway track. And greyhounds and stuff like that. But yes, I think Speedway was their biggest thing. So he was always mad into motorbikes. And my first memory, and it's like vivid as if I was sat on the motorbike now, was being sat on his custom-made chopper. Yeah. Had no idea about motorbikes or anything. Obviously, I was about 2 or 3 years old. Probably.
Are you into bikes now?
Yes, but I'm not allowed one.
Right, okay, yeah. I've had that conversation, mate, funnily enough.
That's it, mate. It's painful. So yeah, my first memory, I guess, is being sat on my stepdad's motorcycle and pointing at the petrol tank going, "What goes in there?" His response was Coke. as in Coca-Cola. I think it might have been Pepsi, but one of the
Yeah.
two. And I was like, what? He runs off Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
So that's my first memory as a child, I guess. But no memories of my mum and dad being together at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me for 2 points of view. One, because my own daughter, when I split up with her mum, she was only just 3.
Okay.
So I kind of look at her and I think, I bet she doesn't really. She's got a couple of little memories, but they're not good ones.
Yeah.
But me, myself, like I can't think of anything when I was 3, 4, 5. My first sort of recollection and memories were probably like, I don't know, I got a few maybe when I was 6-ish, but most of my memory comes in when my mum and dad split up when I was like 8.
Yeah.
I kind of think, I just deleted the. Mind you, actually, a disclaimer on that. I was actually legitimately dropped on my head as a baby.
Okay,
so
that explains a lot, mate.
I mean, it's a good story actually. So my mum, if you're listening, mum, cheers for this. So my mum decided when I was literally a relatively newborn, so a baby in arms kind of thing. You know them old bouncy chairs that kids go in, yeah?
Yeah.
So this was back in the day, obviously mobile phones weren't a thing, so there was a house phone that was on the wall.
How old are you? I'm joking.
Yeah, mate, how long have phones been out, mobiles? I'm old enough. But the phone was like a house phone, with the elastic cord thing, and that was in the hallway. So somebody's rung, and my mum was in the kitchen with me at the time, and because we'd got dogs, she thought, the safest place to stick him is on the worktop. So my mum has put me in a bouncing rocking chair thing on a kitchen worktop to take a phone call because she didn't want to leave me on the floor with the dogs. And I've bounced off.
I think the dogs are a safer bet, mate.
They would have been 100%. So yeah, as a baby, I actually ended up in hospital for God knows how long with a fractured skull.
Wow.
Which might explain why I've got no memories of it.
Maybe that explained the microphone situation.
They could explain a lot of things, mate. My missus will listen to this later and she'll be like, okay, I got you.
Bless. Bless.
But so back to you, mate, anyway. So yeah, you first met. You can't really remember your mum and dad being together.
Remember my mum and dad being together. No, my stepdad brought us up really as kids. My dad was involved in our lives as much as he wanted to be. That really hurts, man. That's deep for me. Being a dad now myself as well. So I've got 2 boys. I've got a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're my world. You die for your kids. Yeah. And so for me, it's kind of hard for me. And I've had this conversation with him, and I'm very open and honest about what I say. I wouldn't say anything on here that I wouldn't say to him. But I can't get my head around the fact that someone would just want to turn up on a Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, have their kids until 4 o'clock the same day, drop them back, and that was their lot for the week. I just can't get my head around that.
Yeah.
So I won't delve into it too much. But when I was going through what I was going through with my ex-partner, so my eldest's mum, there was a lot of what should we say, disagreements in regards to how I saw him, how much I saw him, when I could see him, all that kind of stuff. And eventually we ended up going to court, and it wasn't vicious, but it wasn't amicable by any means. And yeah, basically we ended up going to court and sorting it through that way, which is a shame really. But I just don't understand how a parent can not want to spend as much time with their children as possible, and make memories and all those kind of things. And it really hits hard now and hits home. I have no memories of my dad as a child right the way through to being a teenager, because it was literally saw him from 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning till 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, and that was our allotted slot as children. So me and I've got 3 sisters, 2 of which are my dad's and 1 of which is my stepdad's. And it's just I really struggle with that, because I just think I can't imagine picking my kids up at 10 and dropping them back at 4.
Have you found it harder since having kids?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. And the fact, I think that from a trauma point of view, I'm not involved with my dad anymore. Things have happened and things have been said, and he's my dad. I love him to bits. He's my dad. He'll always be my dad, and I'll always love him. But I don't agree with how he's being a parent, and I think that's what really hurts me, to understand that somebody didn't want to take time for their children, you know, when it's time, you know, it's time, it costs you nothing. And you know what, I've got a lot of sayings, as you know. One of them is money comes back, time doesn't. And his argument was he was always at work trying to earn money and blah, blah, blah. And I think that for me, it's like, especially now, is, you know, look, we all bust our balls, you know, we all go to work to pay the mortgage and go on nice holidays and do the things that we want to do. But the difference is, and I found this out the hard way as well, is, you know, it's all well and good going and busting your balls, but when you're not getting the time to spend that money, I know Joe goes on about this, and you spoke about this with Joe, is that 4 pillars thing and the triangle and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's all well and good having the money, but not having the time to be able to spend the money on the people that you should be spending it on and with is a different matter, isn't it? You know,
it is, mate. It comes back to that whole balance thing, doesn't it? I can resonate with a lot of what you just said there about your dad, and then, because I've gone through a similar thing, actually, mate. I've been through the court process with my kids, and when I split up with my ex-partner, I mean, there's no reflection. I won't ever talk about her on any of these podcasts because I don't believe in doing that.
Yeah.
But what I can talk about is my feelings over what happened. And there was a point. Essentially, my ex is from Devon.
Okay.
We lived in the Midlands for the entirety of our relationship, but when we split, she moved back. Got the kids with her at the time. So I had the whole distance, parenting from a distance, and it was horrendous, mate, at times. And she never ever tried to stop me seeing the kids. We were in court for other reasons, still relating to the kids. But there were many times where I went through things there where, you know, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I don't want to pat on the back for anything that I did, because I always said, look, I'll run through brick walls for my kids. But there were times where I had to make a lot of effort. There's no sugarcoating it. I should have. I don't expect any credit for it because they're my kids. But there were times where I was having to drive down to Torquay to pick my kids up on a Friday after school, to drive back to Redditch, and then taking them back home on Sunday, and then into work Monday. And I did that repetitively for quite some time. And there were points in that process, I guess, where I then look back on my childhood, and like you said, and I'm thinking, you know, man, I'm making this effort now. And I certainly didn't have that in return from my parents. My parents had their own demons. And again, I kind of look back at it now a little bit more empathetically, I think, only recently, whereas there was a lot of anger and blame before. But that's me anyway. We don't need to be talking about that.
I think it's, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? And I think, you know, when you're a parent, you have different understandings of how being a parent is to when you're not a parent. You know, like before I was a parent, you don't think about responsibilities as such. No. You don't think about any of this. Like, what you do now on a day-to-day basis has an impact on however many kids you've got.
It's a huge pressure, isn't it? It is, to be honest.
There's no handbook either, which is the hardest thing.
No. And I'm like, if do you know what? If you were to ask me what my biggest fear in life would be, it would be being a shit parent. And it would be, I would be heartbroken to think that my kids thought of me the way that I have thought of my parents over the past, and situations I've been in, and the feelings I've had. If my kids felt that way about me, mate, I would be utterly horrified.
See, I'm really fortunate. On the other hand, my mum is absolutely phenomenal. Like, she's my hero, man. She's like my best mate. And, you know, so I'm very fortunate that I've had, I suppose, both extremes. I've had, you know, on one hand, I've had a dad, and this sounds really bad now, but the fact that he was such a shit dad has made me the dad I am today. And that's the way, you know, like you said, you know, we take positives from negatives and try and turn them around. And, you know, the learning by someone else's mistakes as well as your own, I think is huge. You know, like I said, I'm very fortunate. And my stepdad, you know, for all of his, you know, he was an alcoholic and things, and obviously we'll touch on that in a bit, but for all of his negatives, we wouldn't have had as kids anything near what we had if it wasn't for him. You know, some of my fondest memories are with my stepdad, you know, which during certain times of my life, I would never have thought I'd be saying that now.
Yeah.
You know, but there's that, you know, again, I'll touch on it later on when we talk about this in more depth, but memories of sitting down in our house in the back room listening to vinyl because it was the only way he could ever get his emotions through to you.
Yeah.
Mate, it's like, you know, and this is again another thing that upsets me is he wasn't my dad. He was my father 1,000,000%. He wasn't my dad. He wasn't blood to me, but he took time and he, you know, like I said, you know, there are times, mate, he was an arsehole and we'll go into that again, like I say, further on. But, you know, to sit down and take time with someone and try and, you know, he couldn't talk about his emotions, but he could through music. So Eric Clapton is a good one, Father and Son.
Yeah.
Is it? No, Cat Stevens, sorry, not Eric Clapton. Cat Stevens' Father and Son song, absolutely phenomenal. And every time I listen to that now, I've got a memory of him being sat in that room listening to vinyl with him.
You can't put a value on that either, can you?
No, and this is what I say, mate. You know, money comes back, time doesn't. You know, I'm never going to lose those memories, ever.
I mean, touching on that, mate, I think like being a step parent is so difficult. Like, I think step parents deserve so much more credit than they get. I mean, I know there's bad ones. I had bad ones, you know, going through my childhood. There were step parents and quite a few of them. But yeah, so I had bad ones. But when you find a good one and the ones that put that effort in and raise you, like, I mean, my kids are really fortunate. They've got an amazing stepmom in my wife.
Yeah.
They all get on really well. But from the point of view of being a step parent, man, that's a hard job, isn't it?
Oh, mate,
it's a hard job.
I mean, obviously, me and you obviously clearly witnessed that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I probably don't take my hat off enough to my wife, but she's basically been in my eldest life since he was like 2.5, 3 years old, you know, and it's a difficult job because you are expected to discipline and you're expected to be a parent. And then on the other hand, you're expected not to be too hard on them and you're expected to
there's limits,
lay off them a little bit.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, I mean, not that I do, but if I were to blow up at my son and call him anything, do you know what I mean? I'm like, I can kind of do that. He's my son. Yeah, exactly. But let's be honest here. If the reaction was the same from a step parent, it is received differently.
100%.
And having that limitation, like, I mean, like I say, my wife does an incredible job. And I guess on the flip of that is she can also walk away. Not walk away from the relationship or the kids, but she can, not that she does, but she could sort of go, well, they're your kids. You sort this out.
Yeah.
I think I do that naturally anyway, but there is that, I guess, that payoff, that balance.
It's a balance, isn't it, mate? Like everything, I guess, yeah.
But there's a big shout out to all the step parents out there, man. It's a 100%, fucking hard job, that.
It is, but,
yeah. We've drifted, man.
That's drifted. All right. So
school. Let's go back to school, Joe.
So yeah, I would say I was probably classed as a school refuser. So first school, fine, no problems. I do, however, and my mum will certainly valley this one. First day of school, the head teacher and my mum had to chase me around the playground. I think that was probably a telltale sign of what was to
things to come.
Yeah, basically. So first school, I was fine. You know, like I suppose cruised through first school, if you like. So I did 3-tier. So then went into middle school. Middle school, I was okay. I wouldn't have said I was a bad pupil, but again, just got away with doing bare minimum, I guess. I wasn't really involved in the wrong crowd and that until towards the end of school. And then fast forward into high school, which would have been the year 9 I started high school. Just went downhill from there, mate. Didn't want to be at school. And I don't know whether that was a reflection of what was going on in life at home. Around that sort of time, I would say that things started getting different at home. My stepfather became an alcoholic. I say became an alcoholic. I think you have that gene in you. I've certainly got it in me.
So was there a notable sort of turning point in terms of, was he always a drinker?
Yeah, so again, memories are, we would go to his mum and dad's, and his mum and dad, when we, before we'd even pulled up on the drive, would have a glass of scotch ready for him.
Right.
Yeah. And that was like tradition. So we'd have a couple of glasses of scotch, and then, back in the day, it was, drive home and everything was fine because drink driving wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I guess now looking back at it, a telltale sign. But foot and mouth hit. So he was a farrier. He used to shoe horses, if anybody knows what that is. Basically, the horseshoes, he used to put those on horses' feet. So when foot and mouth hit, he wasn't allowed on farms because obviously it was about the cross-contamination and bringing things onto the farms and stuff. So he basically lost a massive chunk of his work, basically. So that hit him financially. Previously we'd knocked down a cottage and rebuilt it. I say we, my mum and stepdad had knocked down a cottage and rebuilt it to their spec, basic, beautiful house. But then obviously finances hit hard. So then we've, felt the pressure and the pinch and they've had to move. So I think a lot of that was stress related. And then he definitely started hitting the bottle more.
Yeah.
You would think nothing could go through a bottle of scotch a night. It was very much that,
What impact did that have on the house?
I would say high animosity.
Yeah.
And it was the tension was big in the household.
Was that between him and you as kids, or between him and your mum?
So specifically, it would have been obviously between him and my mum, but then that obviously then got passed down then to the kids.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for me to say because I don't like talking bad of him when I've got good memories of him. But there were certain times when he would pick on the weakest link at that time. So whether that was me or whether that was one of my sisters or whoever that might have been, he was very good at picking the weakest link and he would attack that person, not physically, but mentally. He was quite controlling. I remember, sounds stupid, but I used to go into the fridge when I got back from work. So I was a chef for many years. But when I used to get back from work at like 10, 11 o'clock, I'd get in and I'd go to the fridge and I'd have a pint of milk. Oh, that's my milk. Why are you touching my milk for? That kind of thing, which sounds daft, but it was that kind of control and manipulation then. But, like I say, I wouldn't have had a lot of what I had as a child growing up, both financially and emotionally, if it wasn't for that guy,
Yeah. Well, to be honest, mate, I mean, I know I've got similar things, to be fair, because, for example, me and my dad went through a real rocky patch with his time drinking. We never spoke for 8 years, but now we're on good terms. So I kind of, similar to you, luckily things are repaired now and me and my dad are on great terms, but what happened.
Yeah.
That I can't just erase that because we're on good terms now. So I think it's just one of those, isn't it? If it happened, it happened. You can still retain the positive memories and the good stuff is still there.
Well, he's since passed away. So I forget how many years now, but a good few years ago, he's passed away. Sort of left my sister quite traumatized because they weren't speaking at the time when he passed away, and there was a lot of animosity going between the two of them. I certainly wasn't speaking to him, and I think that's left my sister quite traumatized from that.
Was it alcohol related, the reason he passed?
Funnily enough, no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically he stopped drinking. Don't hold me to this because I'm not sure about the facts, but this is my understanding of the situation. He stopped drinking, and obviously because he just stopped drinking just like that, literally one night he'd stopped drinking because I think his partner at the time was due to go into hospital or was in hospital and she needed a lift or something like that, and he stopped drinking and it killed him basically.
He'd split up with your mum by then?
Oh, yeah, a long time ago. Okay. Yeah, before then. Yeah. So, it was a traumatic time for my little sister and for my mum. Like my mum, I think, watched somebody that she loved dearly. I've never seen two people as in love. I think, as a child growing up, they were very much in love. And, my mum, and I think this is where I get it from. If she gives you something, she gives you everything. It's 100% or nothing.
Yeah.
And I think she does that both emotionally and obviously with, going to work and stuff like that as well. So to see that was pretty difficult. But yeah, it hits a nerve every time I talk about it, to be honest. So. but yeah, that was me really. So I suppose in school that was going on. So I think maybe, I don't know, I can't really remember, but maybe that was one of the reasons I was going off the rails, or just didn't like school, mate. To be honest, I still now I like learning about what I want to learn, and I'm lucky, obviously fortunate enough, when you're an adult, you get to choose what you want to learn about, like you training up to do what you do. I think that my granddad used to say, it's come full of many wise sayings, you can't put an old head on young shoulders. And it's so true, because now I look back and I think, why didn't I just learn at school? Like, I could have got maths and English and science, and I could have been away, and I could have had choices. And I'm very fortunate, mate. I knew what I wanted to do when I was at school. I wanted to be in food. I was in food for like 15, 16 years, probably, all in all. And then completely different tack now. Look at what I'm doing.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But,
we'll get there.
It's, very, very much, I think, he was right in what he was saying. It's, again, another saying he used to say was, to be old and wise, you must be young and stupid.
True.
So I always used to say to him, well, I'm going to be really old and wise then, aren't I?
To be honest though, Joe, I mean, I said that about, cocking up the first podcast. You learn so much from your mistakes. And quite often the most intelligent people out there, the most savvy and successful, are that way because they made so many mistakes.
Yeah.
You look at people like, the high profile ones like Richard Branson's of the world. He had I think it was double figures of bankrupt businesses before he found one that worked.
Yeah.
So it's all those, go out there, fail as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Fail
100%.
as hard as you can, as long as you learn from it. If you keep repeating it, there's an issue. But as long as you take a lesson, there's no such thing as failure. And what you were saying about, old head, young shoulders, I look at it like an evolution, I do. So I look and I think, the person I was then is not me now.
Yeah,
100%. And the me now can't think for that person or behave for that person, because it's based on the knowledge that I've accumulated through all the mistakes I've made to this point. And no doubt I'm going to keep making mistakes. So by the time I'm 70 or 80, I should be like some kind of oracle. You know what I mean? But it's why I love having conversations with older people for that reason. It's not because they're fantastically intelligent, but most of them they've done life. You know what I mean? That they've been through the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the failures, the successes. And that's why it's frustrating sometimes when you see old people give young people advice and the younger folks think, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. And I do, because I was you
Been
once.
there and done it.
I was you once, and I did it all wrong, and I can see what you're doing.
Mate, that resonates with me, because I'm like that with my son now, my eldest. I'm going, same, man. Mate, I've been there and done this. All you need to do is get maths and English. And I'm sat there, as I'm saying it, the words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm going, fucking hell, man, I sound like my parents, and I didn't do what they were telling me to do. So why the fuck is he going to do as I'm telling him to do, Yeah. So, it is definitely right, mate, 100%.
They've got to walk that path and make their own mistakes, haven't they? As hard as it is. It'd be ace, wouldn't it, if you could just upload your knowledge. Go, right, hold on a minute. I'm just going to upload everything that I've been through and let you see the world through my eyes.
Maybe one day, mate. AI's here now, so maybe one day.
Yeah, you're probably not too far wrong there, Joe, to be honest. So, school-wise, end of school, exams, how did they go?
Dramatic fail, mate. Epic fail.
Didn't do any?
I didn't really turn up to many. The ones I turned up to, I remember I was making a paper aeroplane in one of them, so I got booted out and I threw the paper aeroplane stupidly. Given time back, I would definitely change.
So you made a paper error. It's like you just said that, like quite offhanded.
Yeah. It's cash,
so you went to an exam, made a paper aeroplane out of the exam paper, and then
launched
threw
it across the exam room. In my infinite wisdom.
Did you launch it at the?
Not particularly at anybody. I think I just threw it in the direction of. Yeah, mate. Yeah.
You were that kid.
Kind of sums me up, mate. To be honest. Yeah. So I flunked all my exams basically. Ironically, I remember people in the playground when it was results day going, "If you've got fudge and you can spell fudge with your GCSE results, are you stupid?" And I was like, "I can spell it twice." What does that mean? I mean, I'm really clever.
Yeah.
So just not good, really, not a good experience. Just didn't like school, mate, to be honest. And then knew I wanted to do food. I was already in the food industry at part time of a weekend. I knew that was where I wanted to be. So obviously got myself a little part time job from work experience at school. Then that became full-time then. I was going to college when I left school, went to college full-time, hated it, just being in education again.
What were you doing at
full-time?
college?
Food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went to the College of Food, which was then the College of Food and Tourism, which is now, is it, I can't remember what it's called now, College Birmingham, UCB.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So up on Summer Row. But yeah, I didn't want to be there, and obviously stupidly thought, oh, it's food, it's going to be different. Anyway, dropped that then and went in to do 1 day a week in college. So like a day release, the old sort of YTS style, day release apprenticeship, if you like, and then into the kitchen full time and just flourished and went from there. Worked my way up to second chef, then got a head chef role, then ran my own business. I've done bits and bobs in between, and yeah. So
how was, to touch on that, how was running your own business in the food industry? Because all I've heard, so I spoke to a chef before, Rich, Major League Painter, shout out to you, who used to be a chef, and he just said like the hours were insane.
Yeah, so when I was running my own business, I was running a shop. So it was like fruit and veg, if you like, a farm shop on a much smaller scale, and in a small little hamlet village called Barnt Green.
Barnt Green's a lovely little village, by the way, people.
Very affluent.
Very affluent indeed. Yeah. I know it well. So I was there. There was unfortunately a Tesco's opposite me, which was there before I'd opened anyway, but I thought I could compete naively. So I was running the shop kind of, if you like, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. So 5 days a week. So I used to close on a Monday, but I'd open Tuesday through to Saturday. So I'd have Sunday and a Monday off. In effect, that would be my weekend. But then every day I would be going to wholesale market in Birmingham town centre to go and get my fresh produce. Even on your days off?
Not on my days off, because obviously the shop wasn't open. But I would be going in at least 3 to 4 times a week to go and get fresh produce. And that was like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning.
So it's all part of the day, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I'd go back and I'd do a full day in the shop. So I'd be prepping all the meals, because you do ready meals and things.
Yeah.
And sort of like farm to fork, if you like. And then of an evening, then I'd have secured like a christening or a baptism or whatever it might be, a wedding, a party. So I used to do outside catering as well. So we did pig roast, paellas, barbecues, buffets, sit down 1-to-1 romantic meals, like fine dining style.
Sirens going?
They're not after me, honest. So it was full on. To hold down a relationship, to hold down, a social life, to hold down any kind of friendship. It was very, very difficult. My mates were all like, come out on a Friday night, because they'd all got Saturday, Sunday off.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, I'll come out. And, I just couldn't do it, mate. You can't party hard and work hard the next day. It doesn't work.
No, you can't. You think you can when you're in your 20s.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, when you actually look back at the productivity, you can turn up.
Yeah,
you can party hard and be there.
Yeah,
but your productivity is not there.
Yeah. Well, and I was 21, because the reason I set up the business was I came back from doing a season in Malia, and whilst I was out there at the time, when I came back, basically my ex-girlfriend at the time was like, I'm pregnant. She'd been out to see me. That was my first, my eldest, yeah.
How was Malia?
Wow, man.
I can see
let's just say in between, it doesn't do it justice, mate.
Flooding back into your armies there, Joe.
It was an experience, mate, for sure. How I'm not dead, I will never know, because whether it was through being beaten up by a policeman or my liver failure, one of the two, mate. But it was an experience. It was a very, very good experience. Again, another memory that I'll look back and, it was great.
Really, you rep for a year, didn't you?
No, so basically I went out there on a 2-week holiday, knowing I was going to work there. Went out on a 2-week holiday, wrote my car off before I went, which is what kind of made the decision for me to go out. I'd got this payout from the insurance. I was like, what can I do with it? Went out to go and do 2 weeks. And then I was selling tickets for a nightclub. So I was basically walking around up and down the strip and on the beach and that, and living my best life selling tickets. Then got a job as a PR in a bar. So I was getting people into the bar, which is illegal, but we won't go into that. The police, out there, it's illegal, basically.
What's
or
illegal?
Was illegal. Trying to get people into your bar Don't tell me why, but don't ask me why. Sorry, but yeah, very strange. Basically, if the police used to come down the strip, you used to go in and pretend to be a customer. Yeah, weird. So I did that in one bar, and the bar was quite quiet. It was a struggle to get people in. It wasn't a very lively bar, so it's the whole honeypot effect, isn't it? You're not going to attract people into a quiet bar.
Yeah.
So then I started working at another one down the strip, a bit further into the midst of it all. Worked there for a bit. Then I got a job behind the bar. Started making cocktails and doing all the juggling and all that kind of stuff, which was cool. And that was it, mate. Really. Then I came home and obviously then found out that my ex missus was pregnant then with CJ, my eldest. And yeah, it was just full throttle then.
And at that point, you set up your own business.
Yeah. So I basically got the news and I was like, I need to do something with my life because this is
21's young, set up your own business. Also, I was thinking 21's young. I took over the business at 17. Like, I've been running my business since then. But at 17, I never thought of myself as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
I think because of the upbringing and the childhood, which by the sounds of it is quite similar to yours.
Yeah.
You grow up quick. I think when you have to deal with adult shit from a young age, you grow up quick. But yeah, fair play. So you've you've had your business opposite Tesco's.
Yeah.
You've run yourself into the ground by the sounds of it. Did that hit a break point?
Yes, mate. 100%. And I think that was probably my first experience with poor mental health.
Yeah.
I would say without realising it, as I think at the time then, crikey, what would that have been? So 2008, 2009. It probably would have been like 2011, 2012. So kind of before the whole mental health
movement
started coming. Yeah, to like it was started becoming a big deal as such.
Yeah.
So it was under the radar a bit, if you like. Now I look back and I think, I was definitely stressed, and that was my beginning of poor mental health, I guess, for a bit. Trying to get a mortgage, both of us being self-employed, no chance. So my wife, her business was doing really well at the time. So I decided that I was going to jack mine in basically because hers was doing okay. So
in between this, though, just to skip a section, you've obviously split up with your ex.
Yes. And for probably, it would have been like 2.5 years really. So I was there for the birth, in my going out clothes because I was on Broad Street when I got the phone call, which was entertaining photos for the birth of my son.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I, was there for the birth. We said we'd try and make a go of it. Didn't work, for various different reasons. And I just said, look, I'm not going to be here, but I'm always going to be there for my son kind of thing. And through a lot of struggles, people will vouch for this, that I'm still am a massive part of my son's life. He lives with me now, sort of due to schooling and stuff. But yeah, there's not a time, and it got tough, mate. It got tough. There's not a time, and this is again where I go back to my dad, and it really upsets me now that it got very, very, very hard for me. I kind of was like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to stick around. And, I could have easily, as many parents could, gone, this is too hard, I'm off.
Yeah.
I'll deal with it at a later date when he comes to try and find me or whatever.
Joe, I never got to that stage, but I was adamant that I would run myself into the ground. I would die before I stopped seeing my kids, and I'd run through brick walls if anyone tried to stop me. But I got to the point where I then reached an understanding of people that do quit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I never considered quitting, but there was a point where I thought, now I get it. Now I get how tough it can be and how people can get to that stage where they go, do you know what? I can't do this no more.
I think it's different when you're looking at it from an outsider's point of view. My brother-in-law goes through a similar struggle and has done for a long time. And I think... when I'm looking at his situation from an outsider's point of view, it's easy then to give advice and say, you're doing really well, stick at it, blah, blah, blah. But you can also see that, like you've just said, that, I think I'd have given up.
Yeah.
Because that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't when it's your own.
Right. I had that conversation so many times with people that I'd sort of say what I was going through at the time with all the travelling. It was 200 mile down, 200 mile back, and people would go, "Oh, I haven't seen my kids, and we live in the same town, and you're doing all that." And I was like, "There is no option.
No,
I never saw it as an option. It was just this is what I got to do. This is what I'm going to do." Until it reaches a point. And again, similar to you, my son now lives with me. My daughter still lives in Devon. So I'm still up and down, but it's a lot more amicable. There's now an agreement in place for like halfway travel and shit. I think I go too deeply into it. But yeah, my son lives with me full time. But it is, man, it's tough. It's probably one of the toughest things that a father will go through. And there were times like I look back and I don't know why I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't even know what triggered the thought, but there was a time when my daughter, she was, I don't know, maybe 4 years old. And she was like really attached to me. And there were times where I would have to take her back to her mum's house and I would pull up outside and she'd be fine on the drive down.
Yeah.
And I'd pull up outside and I'd like go to take her bags into the house or drop them out the door or whatever. And she'd either lock herself in the van or she'd go in the house or she'd go in the house and then run back out and get in the van. But mate, she would
breaks your heart, doesn't
it? She would scream and cry and all the no, Dad, don't leave. I want to come back with you. And oh mate, like even thinking about it now, like, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But being in the position there where I then had to drive away because I knew I'd got work Monday and I'd got to pay the bills, I'd got to make the commitments, I'd got to pay the solicitors' fees, so there was never any. Like, if I could have just scooped her up and took her home, I would have. But because I knew I had to be in work Monday, it was never an option.
It's tough, mate, for sure.
Yeah, man, there were times there. Fortunately, in my journey, I met my wife. We'd started dating, we'd got serious and all the rest of it. So I'd got support. But I guess looking back now and thinking if that was me without the support, I don't know whether I'd have made it through. I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I did, as cheesy as it is, I'd got the support of a good woman who, like my wife now, obviously I've remarried, but she was there with me through all the court hearings, all the processes. She could see when my head had gone, she'd pick me back up. So I was fortunate, but it's a tough time, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And the system, it's a lot different now, but it was never in the favour of the father. That was the big deal,
Yeah, it's not an easy one. I have to get somebody on to do an episode on that on itself because it's a big subject. It is. But yeah, so we're where are we at with you now? Where are we?
So we've left school, we've done food, we've opened our own business, we've done a job, all that kind of stuff. And then we can touch, I suppose, because this is the next phase of my life, if you like. I like to think of my life in phases. Is COVID. So I've then left and I've gone into a sales job. I've worked my way up, been headhunted. I've shortcut all the boring stuff really, and started working for a new company. And then we get hit by COVID, as everybody did. I wasn't on my own there by any means.
So we're at 2020 now, aren't we? It's not even that far ago.
No, I know. It's mad. Yeah. It feels like ages ago, but also not so far ago at all.
Yeah.
And my work totally changed.
In sales?
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, sales is figures driven, target driven. So they kind of wanted, in effect, maybe not the same figures, but very similar to what we were achieving pre-COVID. I looked after NHS and education were probably my two biggest sectors, amongst others, but those are my two biggest sectors that sort of drove my targets, if you like. And there were, visitors not allowed in hospitals. So, of course, your visiting food goes straight away. Patient feed was down. Although there was more patients in the hospitals, there wasn't the capacity to be able to feed them. So that dropped. And then education, kids weren't in school, so they weren't getting fed. They used to do like care packages and stuff for them occasionally in some schools that, they would do like a box, so we would sell stuff in, but it just completely altered the logistics of my job, basically. So without knowing at the time, but now I look back, I completely know. I think a lot of people did during COVID, started drinking a bit more. So I was, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, going jumping on my computer, tracking where I was at, trying to send out emails to encourage people to buy a bit more and all that kind of stuff, prospecting and that. And then the sun had come out, and you think, crack a beer. It's only 10 o'clock. Yeah, but it's all right. It's like an holiday, isn't it?
I wonder how many people did that, because it was a lot.
Everybody I spoke to, mate.
Yeah.
You know, when I was doing it, I'm thinking, I'm on my own here. But actually, when you speak to people, they're like, a lot of people were furloughed. A lot of people weren't working at all.
Time just went out the window, didn't it?
It was just
time of day. Exactly. Everyone went on furlough and kind of forgot the whole 9 to 5 thing vanished. Now, I was sat there jealous as hell, mate, because I worked all the way through.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any time off whatsoever through COVID, because like my wife's business being a salon, shut completely.
Same as mine,
So I had to pick up the slack. So I just worked all the way through. But yeah, seeing people like you,
I wasn't actually, so I was only kind of furloughed, I think, for about a month, 2 months max.
Oh, okay, that isn't too bad.
But no, it's not horrendous. It was bad. I mean, the struggle with being off. I mean, especially me, like I like to be busy.
And everything's shut, isn't it? Gyms are shut, everything's shut. You
go out for your hours exercise. And I think that was a thing. I think at first it was kind of like, when it first came out and people were going to be furloughed and, this COVID world had hit us. I think at first people were like, yeah, nice. Have a couple of weeks off work or a month off work and be full pay. Brilliant, happy days. I think as it got on, I think then it became a bit more of an issue and a concern for people, certainly for me. I started drinking, like I said, and I got to a point where it became an issue. So I was drinking, I sound really bad when I say this, anything from half a bottle to a full bottle of spiced rum per day.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Which is some serious drinking.
Heavy. I mean, half a bottle would put most people away.
Yeah, mate. And I'd do a bottle in a day and not blink.
Yeah.
I'd just think, that's not bad. It got to the point that it got that bad that my wife would go to the shop and buy a small can of Diet Coke for this recipe that we do. It's like a Slimming World or Pinch of Nom cookbook. I'm not plugging anybody there, by the way. And it's called Diet Cola Chicken, and it's like a Chinesey kind of flavour, sort of like that Asian flavours. But it's got Diet Coke in, which makes a nice sticky sauce. And basically, she would normally go and buy a full bottle of Diet Coke, but she started buying the little cans because she knew if she bought a full bottle, I'd be using that as a mixer
to your drinking.
Mate, because if there was vodka in the cupboard, I wasn't fussy about what I was drinking. If there was vodka in there, I'd drink the vodka. If there was gin, I'd drink the gin.
Did she ever flag it to you before then?
Yeah. Not before then.
Yeah.
No, she may have, but at the time, I think I was ignorant to it because it was that. A bit like, I say to some of my mates now, I don't drink is, lads, do you think you should rein it in a little bit?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You only drink on a Friday. All right, well, you only drink on a Friday and a Saturday, but you drink as much on a Friday and a Saturday as most people would drink through the week.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I've not done research into it, but having been brought up for the latter part of my childhood in an alcoholic environment, if you like, I have a bit of a better understanding of what it means to be an alcoholic, and also being one myself. Hands up, I'm an alcoholic, 100%, an addict. Got a very addictive personality, but being brought up in that environment, I think, there's certain things that, me and my mum have open conversations about it now, and, where he was in his life, and that my stepdad, that the common misconception is an alcoholic needs to wake up and have a drink, or an alcoholic needs to wake up and pour whiskey on their cereal. That's not the case. You can be an alcoholic and drink once a week.
Yeah.
It's not about the consumption of alcohol. It's about how it's consumed. And I always go on to people now, and people talk to me and say, how did you stop? Why did you stop? Would you ever drink again? Blah, blah, blah. The answer to those questions is I stopped because I would have lost everything. I stopped. It was very detrimental to my health and my mental health.
Were you drinking daily, Joe?
Yeah. 100%.
And then, because I don't know about you, so how does a hangover? I guess if you're an alcoholic, it's always in your system. But how does a hangover treat you?
Again, being an alcoholic doesn't mean it's always in your system. Obviously, alcohol takes a certain amount of time to come out of your system. But for me, I kind of didn't let myself get hungover because I was drinking.
Yeah.
So because my mental health was in a very poor state at the time, so I was actually prescribed medication. I got to the point where I was your typical man kind of, oh, I'm all right, I'll brush it off and get up and whatever, I did a lot of stuff through COVID with mental health. So I used to do lives talking about the food industry, because that was the industry I was in at the time. I was obviously sales, but I was still in the food industry. So I did a lot of lives on my Instagram at the time with people in the industry and talking about how they were affected with mental health through COVID, and, girls in particular, how the sexism and discrimination in the industry and all that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of mental health through COVID, but I didn't kind of register that I had a problem at the time.
Okay.
So I guess fast forward to a festival that I did with an organisation called We Are Hummingbird.
I remember you mentioning these guys. Mate, give them a shout.
We Are Hummingbird, at We Are Hummingbird on Instagram.
I have given them a follow as well, actually.
Brilliant. Yeah. So Ian's done, they're doing at the moment, I forget what they call it now, We Ask Wednesdays, I think it's called, or We Ask Hummingbird. And there, today he's touched on depression and what it means to feel depressed, that you can't feel depressed. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I'm gonna get this out there.
Tangent, mate.
So you can't. It's saying you feel. This is what Ian says in his videos on Instagram today, is that you can't feel depressed, because saying you feel depressed is like saying you feel meningitis. It doesn't. It's a clinical illness, yeah, rather than a feeling of that illness.
Yeah.
So go and watch the videos, because what Ian does and talks about and how he gets this across is much better than what I can do. But this guy changed my life. So
I mean, that's a big statement, mate.
It's a huge statement, but it's the truest statement, mate.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I was at a festival down in Newquay, Boardmasters. People will know it well. It's a very, very good festival. Quite family orientated, a younger crowd as such. But they've got big acts on. Would like to go this year, but we'll have to wait and see.
My son's going this year. He's already got his ticket.
Liam Gallagher, Chase and Status, Becky. Yeah. There's some big acts, man.
Chase and Status, mate. That was my old. I love Chase and Status anyway. Yeah.
So I was at this festival. Ian had put it out on his Instagram that he was looking for volunteers, and I just thought at the time, I'm doing a bit of mental health. Being a mental health advocate, if you like, I'll kind of jump on and see what it's about. I had a chat with him. Went to the festival. Kind of was drinking still at the time. I remember setting up my tent whilst having a beer, and people were like, "Well, you're a beer monster, you are, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's 12 o'clock in the world somewhere." That old geezer saying.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah, and that's when someone said that to me, I was kind of like, "Have I got a problem here?" And I'd already known I'd got a problem from conversations that I'd had with people at the time and stuff. And anyway, Ian had spoken to me, and it was just like one day. It was like an epiphany, mate. It was scary. So I'm having this conversation with Ian, and he's telling me about his life and his past experiences, and the fact he was on a plane and he had this mad panic attack come over him. He had no idea what was going on. So Ian had a very, very high profile job in London, insurance broker, I believe. Very much like the Wolf of Wall Street when he explains it to you, that kind of environment. And anyway, he was telling me this story, and I was just listening to him in complete awe of this gentleman and thinking, like, you're pouring your heart out to me. You don't really know me from Adam. We've spoken on Instagram, and I've been with you for like a day, 2 days at this festival. Anyway, he starts telling me about this mental health bank balance. So I'm interested, and I'm thinking, right, okay, what's this then? And he basically explains it that it's a cash in, cash out system. So your mental health bank balance starts at zero from when you wake up in the morning, and you add in or you take out as you would with a normal bank balance or bank. So think of your head as an ATM, if you like, a cash machine, and waking up in the morning, your little boy runs in, or your little girl runs in, or your wife or your husband give you a kiss on the cheek, cash in. Yeah, it's a good feeling, but one that we all take for granted every single day of our lives.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. open the blind, the sun's shining, you can see the sunrise, a beautiful clear sky, that wow sunrise that you get when you think, I need to take a picture of that. Cash in. Yeah. Then you get out of bed and you're trying to get changed and you stub your toe on the skirting board. Cash out. So everything throughout the day is cash in, cash out. Okay. As long as you finish your day on a positive balance in your mental health bank balance, you've won the day. Yeah. So all you've got to do is those little things that you're taking for granted, something as little as your cup of tea tastes really nice. It tastes the best it's ever tasted. It's a cash in. And there might be big things, it might be small things, but if you start registering in your head, because I think me definitely was very guilty of, I take for granted the good things that happen because they happen quite a lot of the time.
I think that's where my head went straight away there is, to appreciate the little things like you just said that you take for granted. So there's probably 100 things during the course of a day.
Waking up.
Waking up with no aches and pains, waking up healthy. All these things that we do take for granted until they're gone. And then it's like, I'd kill for a day of that again.
And it's like, I hurt my back the other week, lifting too heavy in the gym like an idiot. And when you've got an ache or pain in your body, so you sprain an ankle, you break a finger, you do something like that, all of a sudden you're going, God, I didn't realise how much I used my back. I didn't realise how much I used my ankle. I didn't realise how much I used my neck when I've cricked it of a morning or whatever. You don't register that feeling of that when you've got poor mental health. You don't have a bad day and think, I don't realise how good I've got it when I'm feeling good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is it's being accountable for when you feel good and when you feel bad, but understanding.
And was there any, with that analogy, was there any sort of like advice if you realise actually I'm ending the day with a negative balance? More days than not. Where do you go for that?
I think it's seeking professional help. I think, which is what I had to do before I'd had this conversation with Ian. So I was on medication, and believe it or not, right up until this conversation.
Really?
That conversation, no medication.
Okay.
Ever since, I've never touched it. And not that it's a bad thing. I'm a massive advocate. And again, I'll use another analogy that Ian said to me. Think of your medication as a seed. Yeah. So you are the seed. You go into the ground, your medication brings you up to the top of the soil, but you need other things around you then to make you flourish and grow and appreciate and
You're right,
become positive like a flower would. He described it as a sunflower, but you can use whatever flower you want. You get up to the base layer or base level, if you like, of the soil and the sunlight, but you need sunlight, you need oxygen, you need water, you need all these things around you to help you grow.
Well, medication, it's vital, certainly with mental health, because people spiral. So it's breaking. A medication can do that. It can put the block, or like you said, or bring you back to level. But it's important, I think, to realise that the medication will treat the symptom, but not the cause.
Yes.
So the medication can stop the symptoms of poor mental health. Underneath that is the reason that those symptoms appeared. So when you can then address that and look from a stable point and go, okay, well, I've been experiencing, say, anxiety, for example. Why? Why has that happened? Is it a high pressure job? Is it your balance is out of whack? Is it your physical health is deteriorating? Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? But it's kind of like your own responsibility and duty to yourself to not rely on just, I've got these pills now. That's me fixed. There's still work to be done at that point, isn't there? That's 100%. Just it's like your starting block.
Yeah, definitely, mate. It takes time to heal. It's just like putting a plaster on a wound, isn't it, at the end of the day?
But you got to work at it, though, haven't you, Joe?
Yeah, mate, definitely. No, I think it's like everything in life, nothing worth having comes easy. You can't, there's not a time now where I don't think I'd love to be able to just have a drink and enjoy myself and whatever else. But I know the effect of me having a drink.
So one drink would just spiral?
I don't think one, mate. No, I think that the thing with me is I get to the breaking point. I used to call it the magic point of when I felt tipsy.
Yeah.
As soon as I felt tipsy, that was it then. The shots were in, on then the life and soul of the party. And I think a lot of it was to do with me masking what was truly going on inside. So Joe was the life and soul of the party. You never see Joe with a frown on his face. He's always smiling. He's always laughing. He's always the comedian, And I think that alcohol made me feel comfortable. And I think that's the common misconception with alcohol is, yes, it does make you feel great whilst you are having a drink and whilst you're having a good time, but that's what comes after.
Yeah.
And that for me was, I look back now and I beat myself up daily, mate, because I used to be sat on the sofa on a Saturday and I'd been out on a Friday and got trashed, waking up with a kebab on my chest at 3:00 in the morning and that, and then the next day, then I'm like, Daddy, can we go to the park? Let's just put a film on.
Yeah.
And now I don't do that.
Yeah.
Now it's a different dad. It's a different Joe.
We've all been there, mate.
Yeah.
I believe I said this last time round, but because I'm the same, I look back at some of my previous actions, behaviour, and the way that I dealt with things. And like you just said, you beat yourself up every day. I have adjusted my mindset on it to look back and see the person that did those things as a person that was trying to cope with his situation. I hate talking in the third person as well as I'm talking about myself, but I was trying to cope with the situation that I was in, the difficulties that I had, the demons that I had with the tools I had at the time. I didn't have the tools I got now. Like, they weren't there. They weren't in the van.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, like in terms of, power. It's like, well, I only had a hand set of screwdrivers. I didn't have any power tools. I couldn't do that job. And that's how I look at it now. So I'm a lot kinder to my past self to alleviate the guilt, I guess, because I look back and I think I didn't know how to deal with that then. So I dealt with it the best I could at that time. And although dealing with it that way then, I wouldn't do that now. At that time, that was all I knew. So I've learned to be a bit kinder on myself and not beat myself up for some of the actions of the past, just purely based on the fact that I didn't have the tools, the coping mechanisms, the knowledge.
And again, we go back to the learning, don't we? You've made mistakes and you've learned from them and you deal with it in a different way.
Always learning, mate. Got to keep learning. I'm still going to make mistakes.
Knowledge is power, brother. Knowledge is power.
It's the power. Yeah, it really is. And it's the same with mental health, isn't it? And I like to put it out there that mental health really should be thought of in exactly the same way physical health is. If you neglect your physical health, you don't move, you don't train, you don't push your body, it will deteriorate. You got to look after what you put in your body. You're going to get fat. You don't pour enough in, you're going to get too thin, you're going to become weak. There's all of that to consider, but your brain is exactly the same.
100%.
If you neglect it to the point that you were talking about, having that in your mind that you've got that bank balance. So you're aware of that. You're aware of the knocks and the positives.
Yeah.
That's like training your brain.
Yeah.
But if you walk around with absolute, the sort of like insight a lot of people, including myself, had not long ago, I don't have mental health, mate. That was it. Nothing wrong with me. I don't have mental health.
It's the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life.
Isn't it just?
Because everybody has mental health,
yeah.
Whether it's poor or good.
Exactly
everybody has it. That's the thing.
It is that life bar, that bank balance.
Yeah.
Just because you're doing okay, you still have mental health. You have good mental health.
Yeah.
But you have mental health. If you had no mental health, you could argue actually you'd be clinically
non-existent.
Insane. Yeah. So either that or the only point you have no mental health is when you're in the grave.
Yeah.
Then you've got none.
100%.
But it's that, and I think it's really important that people look at it that way.
Yeah.
I really do, to just acknowledge that it's something you have, therefore it needs looking after. Because if you don't acknowledge you've got it, how are you going to look after it?
Yeah. Definitely, mate, 100%.
So you're at your festival, Joe, anyway.
Yes.
Pull it back. You're at your festival. And I remember you telling me it was a pivotal moment.
Yeah, it was.
And that was the same for the drinking, wasn't it?
It was. And I think, so I stopped drinking when I left that festival and haven't had a drink since. So that festival was obviously August time. So if you said end of August, from then on, I haven't had a drink really. So just over 2 years. But I think, there were certain things that happened whilst I was drinking heavily. I say attempted suicide. It makes it sound worse than it is. However, I did get very, very, very low at one point, and I remember walking the dog. So I took the dog for a walk across the fields, which my wife will tell you was very rare because I don't walk the dog very often. She does the dog walking.
What sort of dog you got?
You're going to laugh when I tell you this now. We've got a Staffy cross Chihuahua. My little boy calls her a Staffy Wow Wow, but yeah.
Staffy and mate.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not going to tell you how it works.
That's where my head
That's a
went.
story for another day. Off the podcast.
How on earth did that?
Yeah. I won't tell you the dad was the Chihuahua, and he was literally about that big.
Oh, that's better. That's better. I don't know why I thought the other way around straight away, and I was thinking the poor thing. But if the dad was the Chihuahua, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that now.
Let's just say he's got some bollocks. Literally.
Well, literally. Yeah. I'm okay with that now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
so anyway, we were I was walking the dog, should I say? And where we live is very close to the M5, and there's literally a normal fence that breaks this field up to the M5. And I'm walking parallel to the M5, and I'm thinking, I think people's lives would be a lot better without me. I think my life would be a lot better if I wasn't here. You know, all those kind of thoughts that go through people's head when they're thinking about this. And I think I do also want to say that people often say it's a coward's way out. And I don't agree with that. I think to be in that state of mind where I was and where a lot of people are, and I'm very, 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 very fortunate that I didn't do what I was thinking about doing. A lot of people aren't that fortunate or get a bit too far and they can't come back. It's not the coward's way out. I think it takes a very brave person to do that. And I know that sounds stupid, but I think when you're in that much pain and you want the pain to end, the only way you can think about that pain ending is by ending your life. And I think that's a very, very horrible, dark, horrible place to think about. And I believe unless you've experienced those thoughts and those emotions, it's difficult for you to have any other opinion on it. But yeah, so I kind of basically I let the dog off the lead and I sat on the fence, and I think the dog might have been off the lead anyway, but I was sat on the fence and I sat there for probably 5 or 10 minutes contemplating just walking across and just seeing what happened. And if I was lucky enough to make the central reservation or the other side, then that I was a telltale sign that it was a bit Russian roulette style. You know, if the bullet goes off, I'm gone, and if it doesn't, I'm not meant to go. But I didn't. Something inside of me pulled me back, and whether that was the thought of wife and kids or family, or I'm a Catholic guy, and I do believe that the man upstairs, or he or she, however you want to think of him or her, has a path planned out for you, and I think everything happens for a reason, and whether that's fate or religion or whatever belief you have, that's what I believe, and it wasn't my time. So for whatever reason, I didn't do it, and I now look back, and I probably even more so now believe everything happens for a reason.
At that point, mate, when you went home that day, did you talk to anyone?
No.
See, as you were telling me that story, I just thought then to myself, I wonder how many men have done that, what you've just said, gone to the, whether it's the road, the bridge, that looked at the pack of pills and just thought that, I think today's the day. And then, thankfully not followed through with that line of thought. But then I wonder how many people are walking around today that have got to that point and have not a soul knows.
Told anyone.
Not a soul knows.
I'm open and honest about it now, to anybody that asks or anybody that will listen. But I'm with you on that. I wonder how many people have attempted or got close to attempting, and like you said, kind of walking around I think until you deal with something emotionally and you address it, it's then difficult to overcome. It's a little bit like me. I could I could happily walk around and not drink and not tell anybody that I don't drink, and I don't, would never address it. It's just Joe doesn't drink. Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think when, I openly throw my hands up and say I'm an alcoholic, I've got an addictive personality, I'm an addict, that, that kind of makes people understand maybe a little bit more. And I've certainly then addressed my issues.
Is that, we said this before, there's that weird stigma with alcohol, though, isn't it? It's the only drug in the world where you will be looked down upon for not taking.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It was a reel or a meme or something on Instagram the other week. And I follow quite a lot of like sober pages or sobriety pages and well-being and stuff. And this one had said exactly what you've just said. If you're in the pub and you say to your mate you're not having a drink, you're a weirdo. But if you're sat in the pub and you say, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not shooting myself up with heroin, you're classed as like you're a weirdo for doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the polar opposite. And I just think it's why are you strange for not drinking?
It's normalised to such an extent. That's why, mate, isn't it? Like, society have just normalised it to such an extent. And I could go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy as to why alcohol is kind of promoted.
Yeah.
Because it does exactly what you said. It dampens you and it tones you down. It stops you doing things. And you could argue it keeps people under control, in that a lot of people will live that 9 to 5 life, Monday to Friday. Friday, go out and get obliterated. All weekend, they're hungover. They're back to work Monday.
Yeah,
what have you achieved in that time?
And it's a depressant as well.
Yeah, well, I struggle with that. So, like, I do drink, although not very often. Like I say, I went through my own childhood being around a drinker, and that has affected the way my relationship with alcohol. But I have found now that my hangover is that it's the next day I'm good on alcohol, as in I have a good time.
Yeah,
I'm not aggressive. I'm not, me and the wife don't fall out. I'm a happy drunk.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who knows me will say, like, I'm sound. But the following day, mate, my anxiety is through the roof. I'll watch like a film on telly. I get emotional for something I wouldn't normally, and I'm sort of like welling up, and I'm like, why is this? And I'm like, I'm hungover. My emotions are all over the place when I'm hungover.
And it's again down to chemicals, isn't it? And the balance of chemicals in your brain and that, like dopamine and things like that,
Yeah, exactly.
People are talking about these ice baths, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of dopamine and how long that dopamine lasts from sitting in an ice bath.
Yeah.
I think the analogy was cocaine. I think
longer than cocaine is what I've heard. Yeah.
So if you do a line of cocaine, your dopamine hit is X amount of minutes or
You've done the ice baths?
I've done like plunge pools, and I've done the cold showers, like the introduction into Wim Hof.
Joe hasn't got you into it. So actually, it's another one. The reason that Joe is sat here today is because Joe, Tradesman's Coach Joe, who did a previous episode. So Joe is in Joe's program.
This isn't confusing at all.
No, I've lost myself.
And I am going to say that Joe is a magician with body transformation.
We'll get this in there as well. Listen, go and check out Joe, the Tradesman's Coach Instagram page, and you will see Joe Baker as the poster boy, shredded to fuck.
Like
whatboard abs and all the rest of it.
Mate,
if you're sat watching this now and thinking, do you know what? He's a bit of all right in this. Then you can go and see Joe all stripped off.
Pretty much half naked. Yeah.
Joe, the Tradesman's Coach.
Rubbing oil into other men.
Posing with a sexy drill. Who else won't want to see that?
God.
But yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't got you like on that.
Yeah.
I've thought about it, mate. I've read Wim Hof's books.
And
I find it all fascinating. Like,
mate,
the way...
it's brilliant.
Have you read them?
No.
Mate.
But the experience of the cold and how it treats your brain and how it you go into a state of, what can I describe as wonderfulness, if that's even a word, is like, so I used to use it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I used to get in the morning. Yeah. Because I think, like, it don't get me wrong, it in the moment it's not enjoyable. But when you get out, I feel cleansed, and or felt when I was doing it. And I used to think, like, when I was underneath that cold shower, my thought process was, God, this is hard.
I think people can argue with me here. I think the shower is worse. because it's
it
running
is.
water.
Yeah.
There's something about the fact I can't bring myself.
Well, and you can just turn it hot.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
that
So
as well.
it's kind of like,
that.
actually, no, that's too cold.
Mate, I'm not a morning person. I would love to do the cold plunge thing, but I'm not a morning person. The thought of doing it in the morning murders me.
But this is the point. So getting up and taking yourself out of your comfort zone is, and again, I go back to when I was like going through my. So I read, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think we spoke about this last time.
Yeah.
So he's got a book, and I think off the top of my head, it's called Changing the Habit of Being Yourself. Along those lines. The book's phenomenal. I'm not really into reading, if I'm honest. I learn better from doing. I'm a practical learner. However, there's certain things that I can relate to. And he was saying, like, you know, breaking that habit of doing the mundane things that you do every day, then recreates and retrains your brain and your neurological way of thinking,
neurological pathways,
and all about frequencies and all that kind of stuff, and science, really. But really interesting, I found. But little things like, I used to get up and go downstairs, and I think we're going off on a tangent again here, but hey ho, I used to go and get the mug, which was my mug, West Bromwich Albion, for my sins.
No, it's the Talking Tradesman mug.
Yeah, that's it, mate. It is. Look at my posts. So I used to go and get that mug, and I'd put it under my coffee machine, and I'd do a double ristretto and a little bit of milk, and have a really strong flat white coffee. And that was my Groundhog Day every morning. That's exactly what I'd do. And then I started changing, and it weird, because as soon as I changed the mug, my day would be different. It's like, I don't know whether it was because
in a good way or a bad way, or
it just different. So whereas, you know, I would relate to, I've had that coffee in that West Bromwich Albion cup and I had a bad day. So now I'm going to drink out of the the Talking Tradesman's mug. I have got a Tradesman's Coach cup as well. So
which one do you prefer, Joe?
Obviously yours. The other one's full of protein shake, mate. So it's not as enjoyable.
Yeah.
Also, Joe, I don't have flat whites anymore in the morning, just so you know. So yeah, then you grab a different mug, and when you grab that mug, this sounds so weird, but you're putting it underneath and you're automatically thinking, maybe I'm gonna have a different day today because I've got a different mug. And that could just be me, mate, and my weird brain.
I think you're onto something in the fact that it all starts in the mind.
Yeah, and I think getting up in the morning, you know, and we're all guilty of. You get up in the morning, your routine of the morning is the same pretty much, give or take, every morning. My morning routine is I get up at 4:30 in the morning, I go to the gym, but I'll wake up and I have my 2 Rice Krispie Squares, my protein shake, I get in the truck, I'll have like 1.5 litres of water, go to the gym, go and do my workout, come home, have a shower, get changed, go to work, boom, 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 same 5 days a week, right? When you start changing things up and altering your Groundhog Day, your mind is working differently, because all of a sudden you're not in autopilot. You're not doing those mundane things out of habit, changing the habit of being yourself. Okay.
I mean, there are positive habits, it's worth saying.
There are,
which
mate.
Obviously, like you going to the gym and that. It's a good thing.
And I'm not saying that this has to be about changing your positive or bad habits. It's about changing the way that your mind associates with those habits. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, again, we can go back to my drinking. You know, I go to people now about association and drinking with association. So, you know, for me, the association was I'm waking up in the morning at 10 o'clock, that I'm having my first drink, you know, that whether it's sunny, whether it's rainy, there was no real time. It wasn't like a lot of 9-to-5 workers, like you said earlier, I've had a bad week, I'm going out at 4 o'clock on Friday when I finish work, and I'm going to get blasted until 9-10 o'clock at night until I fall into a taxi or whatever. But I think as culturally and in society, you know, and I noticed this big time when I was stopped drinking, first of all, was you start watching programs and someone's stressed, right? They go to the cupboard and they get a bottle of whiskey and they pour it into their lovely crystal glass with ice and drink. And it's made, they sexualize.
It's romanticized.
Yeah. Drinking, you know, if you're stressed, you're going to have a drink. And that cures everyone's problems in the room. They get home and they have that glass of whiskey or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, you know, the next minute they're having passionate sex or what, you know what I mean? It's very much romanticized, like you say. And I think breaking that down for me, realizing that actually, it's plunged in front of people's faces on a daily basis, whether it's, advertised on the telly, or if it's on a film or a program, or, whatever, it's all well and good saying drink sensibly, like it is gamble sensibly or whatever, responsibly. If you're an addict, you cannot do those things.
Yeah.
If you're a gambling addict, you can't gamble sensibly.
I had this conversation on the episode previous to you. I spoke to a chap called Paul, another painter and decorator, addict, alcohol and drugs with him. And he said when he saw therapy, the first thing they said to him was, it would be good if you could try to drink, controlled drinking. So they basically said, well, okay, you're an alcoholic, but can we just cut it down a bit? Can you just have a few drinks, or can you just have one line rather than, a whole bag full? Yeah. And he was like, and he just went cold turkey.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. He couldn't, there's no moderation. It's either on or off. There's no, but he was actually given that advice by supposed professionals that, just tone it down a bit.
And I think that can work, but I don't think it's a one cap fits all.
No.
For me, I look at my life and everything I do is very similar to what you just said. It's on or off. I'm a 100% or a 0% kind of guy. Me and Joe were having a chat about it when I first went onto the plan. Like, no, I'm all right. I'm happy, blah, 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 blah. But again, like past experiences of me becoming obsessed. So I have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD tendencies, shall we say. I wouldn't say... like you open a cupboard at home and all my beans are faced the same way, all my tins are faced the same way. My mum takes the mick out of me when she comes round and tries to cook the boys' dinner when we're out. I've got very strange, if you like, obsessive natures. But boxing, for instance, I can't go and just train to keep fit. I go to the gym to box, and then someone will go, do you want to jump on a show? Yeah, 100%. Of course I will. And then I'll go hell for leather. And then, like I had a fight in August last year, and I'm going 100%. Do you know what I mean? I've got to win at all costs kind of thing. Granted, I didn't really train for that fight.
Yeah. You do boxing then?
I used to. As a kid, I used to box. My mum used to hate it, so it was very much the elephant in the room as such. And as I got older, I boxed more because I was kind of then allowed to. Well, not allowed, but I could do what I wanted to do. So I've had a few white collar fights and stuff, mate. Nothing major really. I used to do it for fitness more than anything, but like I said, then someone would go, "Do you want to? I've got matched up with such." Yeah, go on then. Why not? I like running. I used to love running, but I can't enjoy running now because I got I haven't ran for probably a good year and a half, 2 years probably, and I really enjoy it. But I get injured because I go out. I'll go, if I said now, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow, I wouldn't just go for a run on the block. I'd go and do 5 or 10K.
Right, straight off the bat.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm 37 years old now. I can't just go and run 10K. But it's like, I mean, my wife is always shouting at me about it. I'll go and do, I think I did Birmingham half marathon one year. So my fastest time at Birmingham half marathon, believe it or not, was 1:28. Which was pretty quick.
Man. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So I had to go and get a good time because my auntie's a methodical runner and she was whooping my ass and I needed to beat her. So I trained, and that was when I was boxing at the time. I think I weighed 68 kilos. I was training in a 20 kilos weights vest and a sweatsuit. So I was uber fit.
Yeah.
And then when I got older, then I decided that I was going to enter it with a mate. I think I completed it in 1:45 or something. But I didn't train. I did 2 runs and went out and did a half marathon. No problem. But
genuinely, the furthest.
That's that.
Yeah. The furthest I've ever run is 5K. Yeah. And that was purely, mate, running ain't my thing. Never has been.
You're built for running or you're not, though. That's the thing.
I built for running through things. Not I used to, when I was young, I played football pretty much all my life from the age of 8 till 30. So I used to run after a ball. That was fine. I could do that.
Short distances.
Yeah, exactly. Short little sprints. But yeah, the only time I always hated running, I got a few mates who are big into it, always hated it. And then it was COVID that actually, but I was a little bit similar in that I was training weights a lot at that stage. Yeah. Then I couldn't train at all. I was like, I need to do something. I need to do something just until the gym opens. So then I started with the whole 5K challenges.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, to be fair, mate, I think I got down to about 21 minutes, which for me was good. But then one day my knee blew up. Just same thing. I'm like, I'm not built for running. But I was just like, I started off, my first one was about, I don't know, 32 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And then I was doing 3 5Ks a week. And I got into it. I got the headspace. And then, as I say, I was still working.
Yeah.
But then my knee blew up. I was like, I can't do this, man.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think obviously when work starts suffering or whatever, then,
I've got no love for it whatsoever. Hate it.
I love a good run, me.
Nah.
Yeah.
I should do. It's the reason I'm this size now.
Mate,
I should do. But
nothing beats being happy, mate. That's all that matters.
But yeah. Where did we get to, Joe? Where are we?
Goodness me, what haven't we covered tonight? Let's be honest.
A bit, mate.
So obviously stopped drinking. So I haven't drank for 2 years. I feel like I've got my life on track. There was some rocky spells.
Do you know where we haven't got to?
Go on.
The whole fact that you do floor screeding. We've completely missed.
Yeah, we did miss that one.
The whole point, because up until this point, the listeners are thinking I'm chatting to a chef.
Yeah.
So
that's covered in concrete and screed.
Second City Screed. Tell me how that happened.
So we did an extension on our house not so long ago, literally on the cusp of coming out of the first lockdown. Nothing major, just a little single-story extension on the back of the house to make a nice big kitchen diner. And we had the floor screeded. So the chap that came out and screeded the floor basically had to be installed 3 times. And whether it was or wasn't his fault is another conversation for another day.
Well, looking back with the knowledge that you have now,
yes,
do you look at it differently?
Yes.
Okay, that answered that question.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So anyway, because the floor had failed, we became mates. Then I wasn't working. I was signed off basically due to stress and other things. Then decided to hand my notice in. So handed my notice in. I was going to train to be an electrician. Signed up to one of those courses that, you can do it from home and then come in and do a practical once every so often. Again, heavy theoretical theory work. Didn't want to do it. So ended up just kind of doing all my assessments, getting to one and just going, this isn't for me. I was going to do it on the back burner. Anyway, he offered me a bit of work here and there, did a bit of work for him. And then before you know it, I was in effect running the company as such when he was away on holiday. I was doing a lot more than a labourer, let's just put it that way. And still earning a labourer's wage. The money was good, but it wasn't justified by what I was doing, I don't believe, personally, now with what I pay my lads. Anyway. So yeah, I kind of said to him, look, I need to earn a bit more money. I'll invest in the company. I'll buy a new pump. I'll do whatever we need to do to get some more income. Wasn't interested in investing in the company or growing the company anymore. And so I said, look, I'm going to start doing a few foreigners and that. Obviously, I'll hire the pump off you and use your equipment and stuff, and I'll pay you for it and whatever. Yeah, and I made a point of meeting up with him because I'm not the kind of guy that's going to do that by a text message. I don't think that's right. So took him for a drink. Obviously, I had a 0 alcohol, and sort of just told him, this is the crack. This is what's going to happen, kind of thing. Are you okay with this? Yeah. Not a problem. That's fine. Go and do what you need to do. And that was on the Friday, and then on the Saturday, I got a message to say, don't come back to work on Monday. And I was like, fuck.
So to your face, he was fine with it, but underneath it, he obviously wasn't. And thought about it.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. It is what it is. Again, I don't look back now on the past and think, what happens if. I now think that, everything that happens for a reason. And I'm now in a position now, mate. Yeah. I've got a thriving business. I'm going to give a shameless plug here and go follow at Second City Screed on Instagram
all day long, mate.
And Facebook.
I got TikTok. That in at the end. But you've done it early, Joe. You've done it
always
early.
Premature, me.
But yeah, absolutely. I just slid that one in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, go give Joe a follow. Second City Screed, top bloke, funny content, stories daily.
Oh yeah, I love my stories.
Man's just brought himself a microphone.
Oh, yeah, mate, it's a game changer.
This is it.
It's a game changer.
He only bought it just in case these weren't working.
Yeah, I've got it on just in case. So basically, like, then I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? 'Cause I've got no job now. Like, I can go back and jump into the sales game, which I don't want to do. I can carry on trying to plug away at the electrician's course, which I don't particularly want to do. I quite enjoy doing what I'm doing. And I was like, having conversations and like, where am I going to get this money from? Like, it's basically a lot of money. I'm not going to go into the depths of how much it's going to cost to set up, which you're going to ask me then.
I was just going to ask you then, why were we going into that, Joe? You told me last time.
Okay.
Tell me again.
About 45 grand all in.
45 grand to set up. Nearly as much as a painting business.
Almost. Yeah, all them brushes.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
And rollers. Sorry, I forgot the rollers.
Forget the roll sprayers these days, mate. It's all change.
So I'm thinking, sat there like, again, this is going to batter my mental health. I'm going to be in a state of poor mental health. What am I going to do? How am I going to feed the people that I care about? How am I going to keep a roof over our heads? All this kind of stuff was going through my head. And anyway, loans were taken out and all that kind of stuff, and finances became available. And, I set up, and, I'm very fortunate that I go by treat people how you want to be treated. And so, people that I've worked with then in the industry for such a short amount of time, those 12 months, if you like, I suppose had a lot of respect for me, could see that I really wanted this to work, could see that I was dedicated and driven, and the rewards I started reaping the rewards basically, and people were putting faith in me and trusting me to do jobs, Yeah.
To be honest with you, Joe, after having these couple of conversations with you now, the one thing I'd say is you can tell just by talking to you how driven you are and how if you apply yourself to something, you give it 100%. So the fact that all those things happened in combination, it's probably the best thing that could have ever happened to you, because speaking to you and the way that you apply yourself into it, I would imagine, this is just the beginning of big things.
You know what? I definitely hope so, mate. I really do. But I do also think that I've learned now from my past experiences, as we were talking about earlier, it's all well and good me now projecting the future and going, I want 5 vans on the road. I want 10 lads working for me. I want. But what the back of my mind is, I've had some horrible, horrible spells of my life where things haven't gone to plan, and, rocky parts of a relationship, and all these things of not just relationship with my wife, but relationship with my kids and relationship with my family, and breaking down that. I think that there's a lot more important things to, and a lot more to life.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, realistically, you could maybe make a comfortable earning on 60 to 80 grand a year and still have your life balance. You might be able to 10 times that and earn 600 grand a year, but you might lose your relationship. You're going to not see your kids grow up. And like you quite rightly said, you're not going to have any time to spend the money that you've got. So there is that. You've got to work out what your actual values in life are.
100%.
And it's one of the main things, it's a sweeping statement this, because it's a massive statement, but one of the main reasons, I believe, one of the biggest reasons for unhappiness in Western society is people not living in accordance to their values, because most people don't know what their values are. We're told our values. The telly will tell you your values. This is what you want. This is what a successful person looks like, Joe.
Social media as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's the big house, the big car, the 2.4 kids, high-flying job,
mate,
80-hour week.
That's what put me into my biggest state of depression, was chasing that Instagram.
That is success. Because that's what you're told is success.
Materialistic as well.
It is very, If your values are spending time with your family, walking your dog, getting fresh air, getting to the gym.
See, mine never was. And this, again, really upsets me. And, I've had open conversations about this with my family and whatnot. And, I look back and I think I was such a selfish person. Drink made me selfish.
Yeah.
It was, Friday night was always my night. It was, I'm going out. You can't plan anything. That's mine. I go out every Friday night. Why are you arranging to go out with your friends on a Friday night? It was always, I would get in from work on a Friday and I'd literally run upstairs, get showered, get changed, go out. That was, no one else came into my mind, and now I look back and I think, what an arsehole. You know, like how could I put, you know, an object, if you like, of alcohol or whatever in front of people that love me and care for me and, you know, would die for me and, you know, and so on. And that it's difficult now to, you know, to come to terms with the fact that that's what I was like. But again, you know, we've said it all throughout this podcast is I've learned from my mistakes and I'm now righting my wrongs. And, you know, I'm trying to be a better person. And I do believe that me being alcohol free has made me a much better person.
The thing is, though, Joe, again, I mean, it's easy to blame yourself, but it's also, you know, you've got to consider that the pressures that a lot of, you know, we men or us men or young lads have, because your social circle, your peer pressure, like all your mates, the lads, as it were, you all do the same stuff. Like, I've been there, done exactly what you did. And I wouldn't consider it a weekend if I hadn't had a drink.
Yeah.
You know, if it got to Friday, Saturday night, Fridays I wasn't always on.
Yeah.
Saturday, if I wasn't having a drink somewhere, I wasn't having a weekend. It wasn't the weekend. You'd go through a whole weekend not having gone partying, drinking, whatever. What a waste of a weekend. And how mad is that to think of that? It was a waste. Now I look at it the other way, completely the other way around. Like, you know, the thing is, I'm turning the big 4-0 this year, mate. I know I don't look it. So,
you know,
I
was going to say that then, mate.
Try and tone the surprise down. But what that means is all of my circle of mates are having their 40ths this year. So there's a lot of parties going on. And genuinely, the first thing that comes in my shell now is, like, I want to go and celebrate with my mates. But if I do that on Friday, that's going to cost me the whole weekend. And the last two of my oldest mates, two of my best mates, both of their 40ths, I've gone to their parties and I've had 2 beers and gone. I've driven there, had a couple of drinks and gone. Because I've had parties on Friday nights and I've thought,
I don't want to be knackered for the weekend.
And I've thought, I've got stuff on. I can't write the whole weekend off for it. And that's what it is to me now. There's such a big cost to drinking to me now. Probably because I don't drink very often. So I can tell the difference. Me, if I went for 2 pints tonight, I wouldn't feel drunk. But tomorrow morning, I would know I'd drunk. There's just that little sharpness has gone. Kind of.
See, if I went for 2 pints, I probably wouldn't come home.
There you go. So you don't have the 2.
No. That's it. Finding that switch, if you like, or that trigger.
How is business going then, mate?
It's great, mate. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm really honest, and people will see this on my Instagram stories. I think I'll probably become a bit of a pain in the arse with my Instagram stories, but people seem to like it, so I want to keep it going. I'm very honest, and I struggled January. I'm not going to lie. January was a quiet month for me, which was a shock because since I set up in November, so November the 7th, not last year, the year before, it was like, boom, straight away. I was doing I did 3 barns, it was my first job. Each barn was 100 square meters. It was big. It was insulation, underfloor heating, liquid screed.
For all the other decoratory types like me that are out there that haven't a clue what floor screeding is. I said this last time round. It's one of the few trades that we don't, like me being a finishing trade, we don't cross paths. So I'll watch, I've watched Tippy's work, I've watched Plasterer's work, I've watched Sparky's work. I've never watched a floor screeder.
Yeah.
Have
you ever seen a Sparky with a broom? That's the better question.
No, I think...
Sorry, little dig there.
To be honest with you, mate, I've heard reports that dodos were seen more recently than that. So, yeah.
So, floor screeding, what is it? So, there's 2 different variations of floor screed. There's what we call a traditional screed, which is sand and cement dry mix or semi-dry mix. And there's a liquid screed, which is what we install. We don't install traditional screed. So liquid screed is a pumpable product. It lends itself to underfloor heating because it encases the pipes and doesn't create air pockets.
That goes on top of the underfloor in heating mats?
So we supply wet underfloor heating, which is run through pipes and run off a boiler. So it's a water system, and it heats the water from the boiler, from the manifold, pumps around from the manifold around the pipe. And then, in effect, you've got staggered out heating. So it's cheaper than running a radiator.
Yep.
I don't bore everyone with all the statistics and stuff. But yeah, that's basically... So we install. So we do footings for your foundations. We do floor slabs. Then we come and install the insulation, underfloor heating. And then we come in with a liquid screed. But yeah, liquid screed, in effect, is a to a degree, self-leveling. It's not because you have to manipulate it to get it level. But it's self-leveling within reason, product that we pump in, and then obviously then we can give the customer a flat level floor, basically.
Okay.
So it's a little bit easier in regards to labour wise than a traditional screed, because a traditional screed, obviously, generally you're mixing it up there on site, then you're having to install it, trowel it, spirit it, level it. It's a more difficult, more labour intensive job.
So I think the only time I've ever seen flooring going in was, I remember seeing somebody, is it called a power trowel?
Okay, yeah, power floating.
With
it
floating.
Yeah, so that's concrete.
Okay.
Normally, concrete.
This is how ignorant I am of your industry, you see, Joe.
Fine,
I'm
man.
literally clueless.
Knowledge is power, remember?
But if you go and follow Joe at Second City Screed, you will learn all about screeding.
You will.
And if you didn't need a reason, there's one.
And here's my new face, by the way. As you'll see from my story if you follow me.
Yeah, I saw something about that earlier. What's going on, Joe? Explain.
I was in bits. So yesterday evening, so I was doing my posts as I do every day, updating where we were, what we were doing, how we were doing it. And unbeknown to me, I was doing on every story, apparently. So normally I start my stories with, so we're over in, so we're doing this.
Yeah, do you know what? You say this. See, this is the impact that you had on that story. I saw that and I thought straight away, shit, I do that. I thought I was so, like, on my on the decorating page, and I thought exactly that. I was like, I need to say something else. So now what you're going to notice from here on in, keep an eye out for this one. I'm going to start it with "Let's talk," because that is the motto of the podcast. Man. So from tomorrow, due to Joe, I'm gonna stop saying "so" if I can.
It's difficult, mate. Because mate, I swear I said this on my story on the way here. So I was doing an update on my Instagram story on the way here, and I was saying, if I actually posted every single story I recorded, there must be 5 outtakes before I actually get the story, mate. Because I go, so, I'm not supposed to say so. I've got to think about something else. Okay, then. And then I make a boo-boo somewhere else, and I'm like, I need to get this right. But
at least you're getting it out there. It's so unnatural to begin with.
No, mate, and I think the thing is, for me, is like when I was in the business of food and I had my shop, social media wasn't really a thing. Facebook was there, but it wasn't really powerful. And for me, like Instagram and Facebook now are the backbone of my advertising.
Yeah,
it's free for a start, unless you do the boosted posts and all that kind of stuff, which I do occasionally. But the main thing is that you're in front of your audience. I'm in front of my audience 24/7. There's not a day goes by unless I'm not working that I'm not updating my story.
It's a monster for business now.
It is, mate. It is, and I think I think the good thing is it's like me doing my stories. It's live. I'm in the moment, and I think people relate to that. And and I also film experiences when they don't go right. I turn up to a job and I go, this has happened today.
They do, mate. But look, I mean, from a customer's perspective or, a client's perspective, that's a great tool to go, actually, do you know what? I'm thinking about using these guys. Well, look, here's him actually working. He's posted all these stories today. This is the kind of bloke he is. Daft as it sounds, there's people with a lot of worries, concerns and anxieties out there. So if they can see you, and they can see you personable, you can get an idea of somebody's character, and then you can see the work that you're actually doing in progress. That's a massive sales tool.
It is, mate. It is. And I think, again, anybody can edit a picture. Anybody can put a picture up of their work or someone else's. Well, yeah, of course
we all do. On socials, you're going to, the angle's going to be just right.
Yeah,
you're going to, there's a little bit rough down there. I'll make sure to not get that in.
Look at the photo shoot that we did.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the fake tan and there's the angles and there's lighting like there is in the studio. There's a lot of things that go on that, give people a misconception. And I think that, anybody can do that on social media. But like you just said, I'm live and in the moment on my stories. I am, and I do film myself installing screed in, and I do, give people a step-by-step walkthrough of what I'm doing and stuff. And, I think it's just, for me, mate, A, it helps the day go quicker. B, I enjoy doing it. And C, I want people to see the real me. Do you know what I mean? I think people buy from people. That's what my grandpa used to say, and what we definitely learned in sales. And I think that's the thing.
It also, pulling it back to the mental health side, though, it also starts to break down those barriers. The stigma of, somebody in the building trades, or most people who are in the trades, there's that like perception, certainly from a certain generation, that it's like big airy grunts, basically, like the cavemen.
Instead, there's a pretty boy.
Arguable. But the face. The face on the tools. So, but yeah, mate, it's where were we? Where were we going with that?
Just the screeding, mate. Finding out what we do.
The screeding.
So we're a year into my business. Well, just over a year into my business. Sort of nearly 2 years, all in all. So yeah, mate, I thoroughly enjoy it. I love what I do. Good. I never wake up and dread work. Obviously, we have stresses when we're quiet. We have stresses at the moment. Like I said, when I came in here today, that my phone hasn't stopped ringing. But it's a good kind of stress to be busy. I think you've got to learn. And I'm the world's worst at this, mate. Is I look at my diary and I think, someone, can you fit me in on Wednesday? And I'm like, I can't really. Yeah. I'll fit you in. Yeah, no problem. Because I don't like turning people down. Obviously you don't know what's around the corner. So I like to try and cram things in. But you also need to, sometimes I do think, and I need to sit down and take a minute and go, do you know what? No point being the richest man in the graveyard.
Learning to say no, mate, is a huge skill.
It is, mate. It is. And I think, a lot of time people appreciate it, and I used to think the same when I had the shop and the catering company and that. And, people were like, can you do it? And I'm like, no, I've got one pair of hands. Obviously, it's different for me now because I've got 2 lads working for me. But, I think to say no sometimes is good because people go, if it's a bit like going to get a tattoo. This is the best way to explain it. If you can walk into a tattoo shop and get that tattoo that you really wanted for 6 months straight away, it's a little bit worrying.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go in and you say, can I have this tattoo? And they go, yeah, it's 6 months waiting list. You know why? Yeah. Do you know? And I'm not saying that I can, sometimes people ring me and ask me if I can do one tomorrow, and I can do it. And if I'll do it, I will do it, if I can. But there is that finding that happy medium, man, of being able to have a good quality of life, but also being able to push yourself. And
I reckon in my business, I probably turn away twice as much as I take on.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah,
but I mean, it's a different industry. Yeah. My wait list is a lot longer anyway. But there is that, and I've been possibly where you are, where I've been more inclined to go, do you know what? I know I'm fully booked, but I've had this inquiry and they sound nice. And it could be a nice little earner. It's on a nice road. I know that house.
And you know what? They're always the ones that bite you in the arse.
Always, mate. Always. And you're looking at your diary and going, actually, if I squeeze that, if I can maybe create 2 days there if I push that. And I'll then create, or I used to create, say, 2 weeks of hell for yourself to accommodate a 2-day job.
Yeah.
And I don't do it anymore. But it's all part of the process, part of the learning curve.
It is, mate. It is. And I think, like you've touched on, I think that for me, our industry or our part of the industry is very much like we're lucky if we've got a month in advance. That's a good.
That would blow my mind.
Yeah, mate. And it's like you thinking like now, like obviously I'm booking into March. You're thinking, at the end of that month, I might not have any work then the following month, mate. Well, sometimes even week to week, like for instance, like next week, I might not have any work on, let's say Wednesday or Friday or both days. And then you're thinking, shit, what am I going to do? Because I've still got lads, I've still got overheads, I've still, my lads are subbies. So if they don't work, they don't get paid kind of thing. But I still feel a duty of care to say,
plus
I still want them to work.
Yeah, and if you don't use them for too long, they're going to go elsewhere.
100%, mate. 100%. So, but yeah, mate, we're good. We're busy. We're bang on. And again, I've updated my story, as I keep saying, but we're back now. And I think, that when you haven't had a quiet spell, because I haven't since I started, when you get one, then all of a sudden it's like,
shit of the wheels fell off. Yeah.
Is something going wrong? Is this recession? Is the election? Is it all going to have a massive effect on the industry? Are we going to crash and burn? And I'm going to be left now sort of high and dry. I'm going to find something else to do. And I think that, it goes back to mental health again, is that anxiety, is the fear of what if.
100%.
And I think, again, I think everybody has a form of anxiety, the fear of what if, whether that's what if I walk out the road and I get run over by a bus? What if I'm not busy at work tomorrow? What if I stub my toe? You know what I mean? Everyone's got a form.
One thing worth saying, mate, is anxiety is a natural human trait, and it's there for a reason. Like on an evolutional basis, I'm not going to go off on the whole rant, but on an evolutional basis, we as a species needed anxiety because there were saber-toothed tigers kicking about. There were real life dangers that now, due to modern society, don't exist anymore. There were tribal wars. There were, so anxiety is part of the blueprint. It's part of the design. So now managing that anxiety in a modern world, that's where the challenge comes in. But it's quite, I think it's important to realise that anxiety in moderation is normal. And sometimes it's good because you can use it as a driving factor.
Yeah.
But to not panic, to not sort of go, oh, I'm feeling anxious, I think I need help.
Yeah.
Like, yes, if it's spiraling, but a little bit, once you learn that it's a natural thing, I think it's good to bear in mind that
coping mechanisms.
Yes,
isn't it?
And it's a natural thing. It's like anything in moderation, isn't it? It's like happiness. If you're happy all the time, you wouldn't know what happiness was.
Yeah,
you'd be classed as, I don't know, probably bipolar on a manic episode, or if you were sad all the time, you could be depressed. So anything in moderation, and all those emotions are natural, normal things to feel in moderation, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
But
definitely.
I need to ask you the question, Joe.
Go on.
The question that I ask everybody. I have asked you this once before. However, you know what's coming. I'm asking everybody that comes on the podcast, mate, given the nature of why the podcast has been set up to address the mental health crisis in the building trades and the disproportionate amount of men that are taking their own life that are in this industry, as to why you think that is, and that our industry, being construction, is so adversely affected in comparison to other industries.
So I remember this question, and I remember it being a very hard one to answer. I mean, the only thing, again, I've only been in this industry a very short time, so it's kind of unfair for me to really put my finger on it, I suppose. I would suggest that it's a male-dominant industry. Obviously, the stigma that's attached to men talking about their emotions, but I also think it goes back to support and support networks within the industry. Big corporates, the one that I worked for sort of during and pre-COVID, there was things in place, that as I was coming out of it, and obviously, understood that I was in a poor mental health state, they were putting things in place then, like a mental health first aider, Ian being one of them. And I think that there's a neglect and that I don't think the industry understands the mental health, whether that's positive or poor mental health. And I think that a lot more needs to be done within the industry to train people and give people an understanding of, why and what and how and where and all the other sort of things that go with it. That how can it affect somebody? Why does it affect that person? Where is it affecting them most? All these things. And I think that I don't want to ramble too much, but it's the old, generational thing maybe, or the whole, crikey.
I ain't going to edit that one out.
yeah. The whole sex thing in regards to male and females, I think men have always been, and I think, rightly or wrongly so, will probably continue to be it's, I don't want to talk about my mental health, You know what I mean? It's like, I think we're all very guilty. Me, definitely. We become consumed in our own emotions and our own things that are going on in our lives to not ask questions properly. I went through a phase, and I've been guilty of falling out of it recently. One of my friends will vouch for this, that I used to say, text a mate and go, "You okay?" As we all do in society. "You're right." It's not, "Are you okay?" It's, "You're right," just as a hello, And I think that asking someone, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm all right. And I think you can kind of get a judge of if someone's okay or they're not. Do you know what I mean? And asking that question again, no, are you actually okay? Like what's going on in your life at the moment? Are you happy? Is there some, that kind of thing. And I just think that in the industry, I mean, like I said, I'm a newbie, and I just think it's not, you'll have banter on a site, but you won't ever stand there and go, I had a real shit day yesterday. And you know what? It affected my mental health really badly. And I am like that. Like people talk to me and they often go on about, oh, you go in the pub on Friday, and I go, no, I don't drink. Well, why don't you drink, you weirdo? Because this is what it does to me, and this is why I don't drink anymore. And it really affected my mental health, and blah blah blah. And then I go, mate, I'll talk to anybody, and anyone that will listen. And I just think that it's not done enough. Do you know what I mean? And
I
think,
agree, mate. Yeah.
Again, it goes back to social media, and I think a lot of influencers and that, and they're not talking about these things. They're talking about that. Well, I'm driving a Ferrari and I'm off to Barbados and I'm doing this, that, and the other, and giving everybody that perfect world image. Not once do you see an influencer going, fuck, I've struggled with mental health today. I'm really bad. I'm on sertraline or, whatever it might be. You never see that. And I think that in the industry, that is the biggest why. As to, I mean, you hit me with some statistics that absolutely blew my mind. Yeah. And I was like, and you're saying it's only going to get worse and that. And
so it's on, unfortunately, the mental health crisis in the trades, as it were, is on an upward trajectory. Semi-recently has moved from being, you are 3 times more likely to take your life if you're in construction to 4. So it's recently gone up from 3 to 4 times, which is 25%, mate. That's no joke, So it is on an upward trajectory, despite the perceived raised awareness of mental health. I think people are becoming more aware of it. I don't think there's the things in place to address it.
There isn't, mate. Like I went to a site the other day, and it's like a contractor's site. So you need this card, you need that qualification, you need that. And I must have filled out 10, 15 forms, mate, about things that I don't even do on site. Like gypsum-based plasterboard. I do gypsum-based screed, but not plasterboard. Other things like working at heights. When I'm working on a floor, when am I going to work at height? Never going to jump on a scaffold.
Take some ladders, what I mean? Take a picture, mate.
I'm not going to screed a floor from a scaffold. It'd make a bit of a mess. So, but there was nothing, not one form in there. Was there anything to do with mental health? Yeah. There was no mental health first aider on site.
And that says everything, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? That says everything. I just think someone's to fall over and break a bone or injure themselves. There's a first aider on site. There has to be by law. Yeah. There's not a mental health first aider on site. If somebody has a panic attack, if somebody has a sudden instinct to jump off the scaffold, do you know what I mean?
Well, mate, I looked at some stats earlier this week, just out of curiosity, because I just wanted to see how big construction is in the UK. To start off with, it's a £240 billion industry per year, right? 240 billion. I mean, just even try and imagine that figure. It's mad. And it makes up 8 to 9% of the UK workforce. And they say there are 2 million or 2.1 million employed people in construction. They're unsure how many self-employed, but you can at least double that, if not more.
Yeah.
So there's this massive, huge, gigantic industry. And like you just said, most of the time, very little to no emphasis on mental health. And there's so many of us out there that are working like, I haven't got a HRT. You got a HRT.
No.
Have you got anyone that will check up on you if you do 90 hours a week and you're burnt out?
No.
Exactly. There's no paid holiday. There's no time. And this is all the pressures, and we all know what we're getting ourselves into. I don't know the answer, Joe. That's the thing. Yeah. So I ask this question just for perspective, because there's all these things, and you can pick apart the construction industry, but then, like you love it. I love running my own business. But there are these glaring issues that are driving people to those extremes. So, and I'm not quite... I think, like you said, bringing in, if it was evaluated on the same context as physical health, but mental health up there, and it was in statute that you had to have a mental health first aider, that you had to have like a CS card for your mental health. You had to have checkups every year. Whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
But something needs to be done.
It does, mate. I think, the checkup thing is a good idea. And I think, well, where do you draw the line? Is it every year? Is it every month? Is it every week? Is it, you know what I mean? I think the thing is, obviously, I certainly experienced this, that I had good days and bad days. I think, but I could be wrong. Most people that experience poor mental health have good days also.
Yeah, of course.
I was very much like that. And, to describe them as my clouds, where I had a day where it was a bit cloudy and I'd have a day where it was beautiful sunshine, and they come and go. But I just think if there's a support network there and it's pushed that people can reach out and,
that's it, isn't it?
That's the thing is people knowing that it's there. And if it's not there, what do you do? Because at the minute there isn't, and to my knowledge, there's nothing there.
No.
Like I said, you don't turn up to a building site and they have, a board with your COSH and your health and safety and everything else that might be on there. There's nothing on there about what do you do if you feel these emotions.
Well, interestingly, one thing I have seen on building sites in the past, have you seen the board that goes up that says no accidents on site for X amount of days? I've seen those in real life.
No.
And it'll be like no accidents on site, because you've got an accident book, haven't you, on site?
Yeah.
And it'll be no accidents on site for 92 days.
Okay.
Physical accidents. Don't say anything about, somebody could go home and end their own life. That don't go on the board.
No.
That don't get chalked up. It's just not talked about. But anyway, mate, I think, looking at the time, we've reached about what we did last time. So it's probably time to wrap it up. Everyone's tuned out by now anyway, mate. We're in an empty echo chamber.
Brumming monotonal voices.
Mate, I'll tell you what, though. Peaky Blinders has done wonders for the Rummy accents, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's made it cool, but it's definitely raised the profile.
It has, mate. It has, for sure.
So thanks to the Peaky Blinders. We'll just throw that on there as well. So wrapping things up, you can find Joe Baker at Second City Screed on Instagram.
Yeah, it's at Second City Screed Limited. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're on TikTok. We're also obviously on Google as a registered business, so you can go and check us out on there in our reviews.
Boom. And from my point of view, if you are listening, in fact, wherever you're listening to this podcast, can you please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe? It really does make a difference to the podcast. And give it a share wherever you can. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you for having me, mate. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming again.
No problem. Hopefully
you're the first.
Not that I don't like you, but
that's it.
3 takes might be a bit much.
I don't mind getting you back in the future for a different reason.
Always, mate. Always.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.